Leading off our discussion tonight is Congressman Eric Swalwell and Congressman Ted Lieu, both Democrats of California. They both served as House impeachment managers in the second impeachment trial of Donald Trump. Congressman Lieu, let me begin with you. And I fear now that the federal judiciary is being played in this game, giving Steve Bannon a July 18th trial date for a trial that should take an hour. There is nothing to that trial. Did you get the subpoena? Yes, I did. Did you show up? No, I didn't. The judiciary is playing the Trump lawyers' gang delay game with them.
Thank you, Lawrence, for your question. I agree with you, which is why I believe we need to execute the inherent contempt power of the House of Representatives. This power has been upheld by the Supreme Court in the past. It would authorize the House of Representatives to fine witnesses that disobey congressional subpoenas or put them into confinement. So I have legislation on that, and I know people are now starting to take seriously this inherent contempt power. I think that's how we can get around these delays from the federal judiciary.
Congressman Swalwell, there's been a lot of talk, including at the Supreme Court itself, about the perceived legitimacy of the Supreme Court were it to overturn itself by overturning Roe versus Wade. There has been no discussion about the perceived legitimacy of the federal district court in Washington, D.C., and the Circuit Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C., and this system that Steve Bannon, Roger Stone, Jeffrey Clark, Mark Meadows now are all playing because they know that that judicial system will give them all of the delay, the months of delay, possibly the years of delay that they're looking for.
Lawrence, we saw this with Don McGahn. Ted and I were on the Judiciary Committee. We sought Don McGahn's testimony after the Mueller report came out, and they ran out the clock. They kept taking a knee until the term expired, and the voters went to the polls in 2020 not knowing what Don McGahn's testimony would be. I support Ted's legislation for inherent contempt. We should fine them $10,000 a day until they come in. And for Mark Meadows, the judge should hold him in contempt immediately once we refer it to them, and they should throw his own book at him for the privileges that he waived in his book. We can't do enough. And Adam Schiff's legislation, by the way, the Protecting Our Democracy Act, we will vote on that tomorrow, and that creates a fast track for Congress to get to the courts on these subpoenas.
And Congressman Lieu, I have mentioned this before in this discussion this week, that in some of the biggest, most famous prosecutions in American legal history, the defense side never cooperated. They never testified. You had to build a case without getting the criminals themselves to tell their story. And that has been done, and there are ways to do that. And this committee can do that. So as much as we can talk about the frustration of this delay game that's being played, the fact is that it is possible to conduct an investigation about what Mark Meadows did without Mark Meadows' testimony and what Donald Trump did without Donald Trump's testimony.
That is absolutely correct. Both Representative Swalwell and I are former prosecutors. And first of all, we both agree that the January 6th committee is doing an excellent job. And they are essentially building that case without these witnesses. They've already had hundreds of interviews with witnesses who have cooperated. They have received thousands and thousands of documents, including 6,000 from Mark Meadows himself that he gave voluntarily. And we need to ask, and the American people need to ask, why did Mark Meadows all of a sudden stop cooperating? What is he now trying to hide from the American people? And I think he suddenly realized that a lot of these documents he produced are very incriminating.
Well, Congressman Swalwell, I love it. I love it is what he says when he's responding to the description of a criminal conspiracy to steal the election on January 6th. What was being described to him was against the law and was a crime, and he said, I love it.
Where have we heard that before, Lawrence? If I can give you stolen information on Hillary Clinton, would you like to receive it? Donald Trump Jr. says, if it's true, I love it. These guys love to crime when it comes to elections. And I would love to see them all held accountable. And it's not just a legal obligation that Mark Meadows has, because his lawsuit will go nowhere. He will be held in contempt by the Congress, and I believe the Department of Justice will also seek his indictment. It's a patriotic obligation. If you truly had nothing to do with the insurrection, the treasonous act that took place on January 6th, you would help your country. If you had something to do with it, you would do exactly what Mark Meadows, John Eastman, Clark, and so many others are doing, and that is acting like a guilty person.
Congressman Lieu, the Trump gang for years now, led, of course, by Donald Trump, has been an attack. It's been a relentless attack on what we thought were reliable Washington institutions. The new institution that I see under attack tonight by the Trump gang, and the attack is succeeding, is the federal judiciary, especially the federal judiciary centered in Washington, D.C. We never knew before that if you got a congressional subpoena, you could possibly sue the Speaker of the House for being part of issuing a congressional subpoena, and then buy yourself possibly several months, Mark Meadows will buy himself, of frivolous lawsuit litigation here, because the federal courts in Washington, D.C. have fallen into the trap of this game, and they are, in effect, will delegitimize themselves as enforcers of this kind of process.
That is absolutely correct. And Representative Swalwell mentioned the Don McGahn case earlier. I just want to note that we won a lot of those cases, but it took 2 years. And so Donald Trump and his enablers have figured out that they can use this delay tactic. And there's no other way to say this, but congressional subpoenas essentially are rendered meaningless if we can't enforce them, because it takes years to do so. And again, that's why I think we have to go back and rely on inherent contempt. That's one reason Congress executed it in the first place. And we simply have to be able to enforce our own subpoenas and not rely on the federal courts to take years and years, some cases, to decide these subpoena issues.
Congressman Swalwell, what we're learning in what has been revealed already from what Mark Meadows handed over is he obviously was using personal cell phones and personal email accounts while working in the White House, and using those personal accounts for governing communication, actual governing communication. In other words, he was violating the Federal Records Act. He was doing what the Republicans accused Hillary Clinton of doing. I'm sure he was one of many in that White House who were doing exactly what they used to say was completely outrageous. And that's been exposed in what he's already handed over.
They're always projecting, Lawrence. And I also think of the Mueller report, where Mueller said that there were a number of blind spots in their investigation because of the apps that were being used, the number of encrypted devices and apps that were being used to conceal conversations. And the fear here is that they may have been doing that, and we have to find that out. I just want to put one fine point, though, on what this means to everyday Americans, to your viewers, because a lawyer called me earlier today, someone who practices in federal courts, and he was so upset. And he said to me, Lawrence, he said, I go to court every day. I tell the truth. I try and present myself with integrity. And what is it worth if people like Mark Meadows and others can just blow off subpoenas? That's the trickle-down effect, the collateral effect, is that if people start to believe that law and order doesn't matter anymore, then as a democracy and as a country, we're lost.
Congressman Eric Swalwell and Congressman Ted Lieu, thank you both very much for joining us tonight and leading off our discussion. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.